Hey lovelies, it's Kate. Welcome back to another video. I'm building a modern mansion in this video, but this time I approached the whole build a little bit differently. I decided to create a round shape at the bottom. It's almost like some type of cliff, and for this cliff I used a debug object. It's a column and I placed a lot of them to create a huge round shape, and then I built the house on top of this shape. I started off by raising the terrain. I just raised it a little bit and then I used the flattened terrain tool to just expand this whole area, and this way I laid out the shape that I was going for my round cliff. And then when I started to use the columns, I just tried to follow the shape that I created with the terrain tools a little bit. It was just like some type of little guideline, but eventually I ended up changing the shape a little bit, and this was just freestyle. At this point, I didn't even think of the house that I would be building. I didn't think, okay, I have to create the round shape this or that way because I want the house to go there. I just created a round shape. It was just freestyle, and then later on, I just tried to fit a house on top of this crazy shape. At some point I just realized that I probably have to change one of the curves at least a little bit, because there wasn't even a lot of space in the center to create a house. And of course I also wanted to fit a part of the house inside one of the curved shapes, but these were like so small and narrow that I really had to change up the shape a little bit. This was the only thing that I had in mind for the house at some point, but it was a lot of fun to approach the build this way. And I've actually talked about this in a podcast that I was on a couple of days ago, the Simmers Digest podcast. It was a pleasure, and I'm going to link the podcast down below in case you want to check it out. I'm talking about inspiration and just all kinds of different things. And of course, there are also other amazing simmers featured in this podcast. However, I have also talked about inspiration and all that in this podcast. And the way that I like to approach a build, and I actually get this question a lot, is I just build as I go, and I like to develop ideas as I go. So here, for example, my only vision was to have this round shape at the bottom to create some kind of almost like a cliff, as I said, by using a debug object. And then I just saw what would happen. And while you are building, you kind of think, okay, this would be fun, this could be fun. So my advice would be, if you're struggling with this, just have fun, just start building and see what happens. You don't need a solid vision for a build when you start to work on a build. Sometimes the building process leads you to amazing places, and I think this is a lot of fun. But back to the building process. As you just saw, I added a floor to the cliff. I know it's not really a cliff, but we are going to call it a cliff now. So I had different approaches and plans for this. Initially, I wanted to raise the terrain, and then I wanted to build the columns around the raised terrain. But in this case, you always have a gap between the columns and your terrain, because you just have to leave a gap, because otherwise the columns, or any object really, or almost any object, is going to jump up because it sits on the slope, and you really have to leave like, I don't know, 1 or 2 tiles between your slope and the object. So this wasn't really good. Then I also thought about building the columns and then raising the terrain, but of course then also all the columns would be jumping up, and this would have been a nightmare. So I then eventually decided to just add a floor to all of this. So the area at the bottom is hollow, so it's just decoration, it's just a cliff, and the house sits on top of it. So there's just nothing between the terrain and the floor. To add the floor, I used a little trick that I've used countless times. I build a room, then I build a floor on top, and then when you get rid of the room at the bottom, you can just use the arrows to move your floor piece up and down freely, so you don't have the issue that the foundation is raised, because this would happen if you would just build a room and then you click on the arrow. You would of course just raise the foundation. So I built the floor on top, and then I found the correct position, and then I just expanded this floor piece. One thing you have to keep in mind in a scenario like this one, sometimes when you try to expand the floor the way that you would expand a room by just clicking on the arrows and dragging it bigger, sometimes the objects, in this case the columns, can be moved together with your floor piece, and of course you want to avoid this, and in this case you can just place floor piece after floor piece, so you don't expand your floor by dragging the arrows, you just add more floor pieces to your floor, and this way you can avoid this issue. So now that we know how I created this cliff in detail, let's talk about what's going on here. So I just added some stairs in the front. For these, I also used a foundation piece. I just wanted to create these multi-level stairs. Of course, you could also use the configurable stairs option for this, but this was just easier. It was quick. I just knew where my stairs would be going in this case, so I just did it the old-fashioned way. I added a flat base game bush. I really like this one just to add a bit of green here and there all around the round area, for example. I also used the pristine pedestal to just put an emphasis on this round shape on the red side and just all kinds of different things. The rock that I used is also a debug object. It's a base game debug rock, and I just created this kind of edge. I just wanted to have some type of almost like a fence around my build so it looks natural. The cliff itself, again, we're calling it cliff here, is not natural. Like when you think of a cliff, you think of rocks and something natural, and this is not really it, but then I added the rocks out around it to make it look at least a little bit more natural. I also added some island living bushes. I really wanted to have a pop of color here and there, and at this point the cliff, the whole base is almost done, and then at some point I just started to build the house on top. At this point I was in complete round shape mode, and you guys know that this is one of my weaknesses when it comes to building, so I couldn't stop, and I thought, okay, at this point you created a round cliff, so at this point you can go all out and you just add more and more round things here. So I added a little round trellis, and this was a bit tricky, and to be honest I don't even know why. I don't know if some patch just kind of broke this. When you place a round foundation, when you have this round shape and then you place a fence all around it, you can simply use the sledgehammer tool to get rid of the flaw, so you don't have a flaw in the center. And you can do this with any floor piece. You just have the fence on the outside and you remove the flaw. And this also works for round foundation pieces, but for some reason this was kind of buggy and weird. Like it wouldn't accept the very flat and small get to work fence. I think it's get to work. I hope I'm not wrong here. Like when I used this fence and then I used the sledgehammer tool, it would delete the whole thing, the whole round shape. Then I used a different fence and then it would work. But then when I was adding another round shape later on, it wasn't working again. I don't know. This was confusing, but I made it work, and I don't even know how. Like at some point it would let me delete the floor in the center, and I created my round trellis. I just added the small fence, I added an exterior trim, I added some flowers on top, some columns at the bottom, and that's it, just for decorative purposes really. And then I also used the round shape above and behind the trellis just to create some very small round flower bed. I added some cypress trees. I really wanted to add a lot of flowers and plants here and there, so it looks very happy and inviting. I used the Jungle Adventure wood floor. It's my favorite wood floor in this game probably, and the color and the pattern is just perfect. It looks so warm and just so perfect. Whenever you're using this, if you want to create a contrast like this, it just looks so dreamy. It's just like the perfect wood floor for bits like this in my opinion. I said this before, but Jungle Adventure is such a surprising pack when it comes to building, because even if you don't want to create jungle themed builds, and I rarely do that, or never probably, you just have so many objects that are cool for all kinds of different styles. This wood floor is absolutely top notch, for example. Then we have this wall decoration, which almost looks like a cornerstone. You can use it on the exterior, just all kinds of different things. It's such an amazing pack for mansions and all kinds of different builds. And finally, I'm working on the house itself, and I really struggled with this. Like whenever I'm starting to work on the landscaping and I create something like this and then I'm done and I'm like, okay, now I just have to add a house. Sometimes builder's block hits me so hard, and then I feel pressure because I really like what I've built and I really want to use what I've built. Like I really like the cliff and all the landscaping, and I think, okay, this could be so beautiful, but now I just have to add a house to this, which totally works with the rest of the landscaping. But then I decided to go for a modern build, and it just came along. Again, I just added more and more stuff here and there, more rooms, and I just worked out the shape. I added some trellis, just so, I don't know, I just added all these round trellis in the front and just on the right side. So I figured it would be fun to have more of them, so it looks cohesive, and it's just kind of an ongoing theme in this build, I guess you could say. And this house has 6 bedrooms. It looks big, and it is big because recently there were so many builds of mine. They looked big and they weren't as big on the interior. Like, I built big houses on big lots, but then I used so much space for landscaping that there weren't even many bedrooms really. But here it's a proper mansion with 6 bedrooms. There's also a home gym, so there's a lot of space for a big sim family. And I decided to add another trellis on the right side, as I said. So at this point, I felt like it's balanced. When you look at the build from the front, you have a round shape on the left side, one in the center, then on the right side, and then this one, which is on the right side, but more to the back. And then I also added another round balcony underneath the trellis, and then I was done with other round shapes. At least I think so. I don't know, maybe later on I'm adding more. I don't even remember. There's so much going on in this build, but there are many round shapes, and at this point I was really satisfied with just with the whole look. I've also finally added the OMSP shelf to my game, and OMSP stands for One More Slot Please. It's a red shelf that you can just add anywhere to your build, and it has a lot of slots, so you can place a lot of stuff on top. It's good for realistic cluttering or over the top cluttering, and I think it turns translucent when you switch into lift mode. But I just want to use it to place stuff, and then I just want to get rid of the shelf, so I don't add CC to my builds, as you guys know. So my builds are CC free, so I only want to use the shelf to just create some amazing cluttered shelves and surfaces, but I won't upload the build to the gallery including the shelf, so it's just for the building process. But I haven't really tried to use it properly. I haven't hackled it. I just added it to my game, and I want to check it out very soon. But in case you just saw me building something and you saw a weird CC object in the shelf section, that's the OMSP shelf. Also, I'm super excited if something major might happen this month, because in 2018 and 2019 we got a game pack in February in both years, so maybe this year it's going to be the same. I mean, there are still no news, no trailer, no speculations, nothing really, just the fact that February has been the month for game packs during the last 2 years, so who knows. And also in the last year, for example, whenever something was announced, it all happened so quickly. Maybe I'm wrong, but right after The Sims 4 came out, it felt like sometimes we had to wait a month or months before we got a pack. But like last year it was like, hey, here's a trailer, and in 1 or 2 weeks you can download this pack. So maybe something similar is going to happen this month. Everything just happened so quickly, and they said that 2020 would be the biggest year for The Sims yet, so who knows what's going to happen. I don't know, just like being excited and looking forward to new content. So who knows what's going to happen, but this is really just rumors and speculation. There weren't even any hints or anything. It's really just the fact that it's February, so who knows. And here I'm finally working on the interior. I just kind of went a different route for the interior. At first I didn't, but then I changed a lot about it. So here I'm starting to work on the corner where I placed the stairs. It's basically just like some type of hallway or a seating area. I don't know what this is. I just added a piano and just different things, a sofa, so it's just some type of cozy corner. I just had to fill the space. And at first I used a lot of neutral colors. I used a lot of white and beige. I really like to do that, and I combined these colors with a very dark wood tone, and I did the same for the kitchen, as you will see. But then eventually I decided to add a lot of blue, and I don't think that I've really ever done this before, so I really wanted to add a bit more color to my interiors. I've said this before, but my mom is a simmer, and now that the gallery is cross-platform, she really likes to show me her builds because she's on console, and I really love to just place her builds and then I can take a close look at it. It's always so much fun. And she really likes to use a lot of color for her interiors, but not in a overwhelming way or anything. It looks so cool and so fun. And after she had shown me her last build, I was like, well, I just realized I rarely use color for the interior, like at least an accent color here and there. I rarely do this. It's always really monochrome, really neutral, and I really like this style. I think this is just my kind of style, but I also felt like it would be so fun to sometimes have a pop of color here and there on the interior. Funnily enough, I really like to do that for my exteriors. I always talk about a pop of color here and there, but I never do this for my interiors. At first I added this, I think it's a vampire floor, but then as you just saw, I changed it and I used some beige, and then I built the kitchen in this corner. For me, I really like to build huge kitchens, and I always use a lot of windows, big windows, so it's kind of hard to find the correct spot for a kitchen most of the time. But then I just built it there. I really like the position because it's like right in the center. There is the dining room on the right side. We have the entryway and just the living room on the left side. It's just in the middle, and the kitchen is like the center of the house, or of the living area at least. And I really like that. The counters came with cool kitchen stuff, I think. It's a fun pack. I mean, it's a weird pack. Like when we talk about stuff packs, such a weird theme for a stuff pack. I mean, it would have made a lot of sense to just add the stuff to the base game probably. I don't know, but I still like this pack because the objects look fun. And here I decided, okay, I'm going for color. And then I added these red chairs, but eventually I changed the color and I used a lot of blue, and at some point I was scared it was too much blue. I still have to work on that, but let me know in the comments down below what you think of that. I mean, here at this point there isn't much color going on and I'm still using a lot of red, but in a couple of seconds I'm going to use a lot of blue, and I can't wait to hear your opinions about this. I always struggle with my interiors and I always try to improve, and it's always a lot of fun to kind of figure out things. And as I said, there are 6 bedrooms, so this house is huge, but I didn't record the furnishing process of every single one of them. This video has already gotten so long, so I always try to cut out some parts, and you are going to see how I furnish a few of them. I also included 2 super cute kids' rooms, and I said this before, but the whole tiny living hype has taught me that sometimes I'm really able to furnish smaller spaces. And the kids' rooms aren't super huge, as you will see, so I really kind of try to use what I've learned from the whole tiny living experience. And here at this point there's a lot of blue going on, as I said, so I changed the wall color. I used this very pale, beautiful blue. I really like this. It looks super happy and inviting, and this here is one of the best rooms. I used some kitchen counters to make it look more interesting and fun, so I placed the cabinets, I mean not kitchen counters, so I placed the cabinets right next to the sink and also above. I included a mirror. I just wanted to make this area look extra special and fun. I used some beige tiles on the floor and walls, so it looks just like happy and inviting. The door is part of Get Famous, actually, I think. And here I'm working on one of the bedrooms. This bedroom is also kind of smaller, but as I said, I've learned a lot from tiny living, and this is just kind of small. Like, I really like to build these huge master bedrooms, and they have a fireplace and a sofa, an armchair, almost like some type of hotel suite, which is also fun. But here it was also challenging and fun to create some smaller bedrooms, and this is one of the kids' rooms. It looks very happy and inviting, as I said. The wall color came with university, and I really wanted this just to look happy. I added some lights to the walls, then I placed a shelf above the lights just to have some space where I could place some clutter. I didn't use the CC shelf that I talked about earlier, so I just used a regular base game shelf. I also tried to incorporate a little bit of wood by using the shelf because the windows already have this warm toned wood color, so I figured it would make sense. This is the other kid's room. It looks almost identical, just mirrored when it comes to the placement of the bed and all that. I really had to make use of the space that I had. And here I'm changing up something. At first I had added a big door there in the kitchen where you could walk out to the balcony, but then I changed this. I added some windows and a small door because I had to find a spot for the stairs, because down there's also another bedroom. As I said earlier, the bedrooms are kind of scattered. There are different areas where I included some bedrooms, so it's 6 in total. And this is almost it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have included some screenshots also from above so you can see the whole floor plan. I hope that you have a perfect day, and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye bye.